Welcome to the Marvel Alliance podcast, where we cover anything and everything to do with the Marvel Universe. In the comics, TV, and movies, we will go from the Mojoverse to Earth 616 to the TVA in order to bring the Marvel Universe right to you. I'm the man without fear, Chris.
And I'm Travis again.
Alliance Assemble.
Assemble.
Volume 182. And yes, Travis is back and refuses to fall in
Woo!
line and try to come up with a catchy adjective to describe himself.
Hey, I had to come up with facts or fictions too, so my
Oh, you've
brain
known
can
about that
only.
for
Yeah,
too long.
I
I
have
think
a
use that as an excuse.
I have a list of facts and fictions for a couple times already come out of here.
How's been your week?
It's been good. I'm glad that it's winding down. Work has been pretty good this week. Unfortunately, I had to take Wednesday off. I
Oh
was
no.
all ready to go to work. Walked out through the door and saw that Allison's SUV had a flat tire. Got in,
Oh.
pumped it up, and got in to just move it. And it was a loud knocking noise in the back passenger side. A little while later, I found out that it was a wheel bearing gone. So that's been
Oh
in the
no.
shop. It'll be fixed tomorrow afternoon, I think. I don't want
Okay.
to get the damage report on that. Although,
Mm.
let's just say, not the top of the line mechanic, like dealership type thing getting this done. So it'll be a little bit cheaper. Thankfully, there's this person that I know that does a little bit cheaper. So that'll be thankfully a little bit of a godsend, but it's still going to be rough because that SUV is quite expensive and
Mm-hmm.
things fix is quite expensive. But besides that, it's almost Friday, Chris, and we got some Marvel stuff to talk about. So I'm ready to go. How's your week been?
Yeah, we actually have news to discuss this week. We don't have to delve into the COVID times of trying to say, hey, what can we come up with this week? Yeah, as we were talking offline, it's the past 24 hours has been it's been an interesting week, but the past 24 hours has been needless to say some things I've got to think about. So
Mm-hmm.
and see where it's lying, but all good. All things positive. Everyone's healthy. My sister's getting married this weekend, so I'll be attending that.
Ooh.
So that'll be nice and fun, and be good catching up with and seeing some family and celebrating my sister tying the knot with her fiance. So, and the good thing is I like her fiance. So there we
Well,
go.
that's always positive. You don't have to fake it.
Yeah,
That's
exactly.
yeah.
Exactly. So, but all right, so let us get all the lovely show plugs and show notes out of the way. We are part of the Geek Ultimate Alliance network we have 7 shows covering the wide range of geek and nerdom. To see the full schedule, check out the show notes below and subscribe to the Geek Ultimate Alliance network on Twitter at GUA Pod Network so you know when all the shows drop. We also have a Patreon, so if you want to throw a couple of shekels our way, we've got 2 tiers. We've got our dollar tiers, our tip jar to say, hey, you think we're doing a good job? And then we've got our $5 tier with ad-free episodes, early access episodes, and Patreon-exclusive shows, including our show, We Can Watch This All Day, the Marvel Alliance MCU Rewatch, as we're rewatching all the films in the Infinity Saga. We have 20 episodes up there, and the next new episode drops Monday morning. It is Ant-Man and the Wasp.
Ooh.
So definitely, again, it's kind of like the appetizer before the big show of Infinity War and Endgame. So Brent and I are very excited to get to that. But it's an Ant-Man movie. We do have a lot of kind things to say. A few question marks of decisions that were made, but it was a good time. So patrons, that drops for you next Monday morning. You all at DC Alliance have got DC films and possible TV movies through the years. You dropped the Emmy Award winning Steel. What is next on the docket for you all?
Road to Perdition, and it's the first time
Ah,
that I've watched this film, Chris. So I
that
had some thoughts. It's going to be an interesting discussion. We're going to get it done this weekend. We're going to do it last weekend. The power went in
I
my
remember
house.
you saying that.
And one thing about Ant Man and the Wasp, if you're a fan of Justified, you'll have a particular qualm about this film that is very frustrating, just in wasted potential of one actor.
Yeah,
So yeah, but
but he
still,
but
I really enjoyed the film.
hey, but he also did amazing in Sons of Anarchy.
Oh my God, yes, he did.
um, so but yeah, Road to Perdition. All right, I lost my train of thought there. I absolutely adore Road to Perdition. I'm a huge proponent of that. I consider that definitely a top tier graphic novel. I know I may be one of the one of the few. Our buddy Scott is in line with me. I'm a,
Hmm.
I'm a huge
Hmm.
fan of that. So I'll be very interested to hear hear that discussion. But yeah, and then we've got Joe. Let's see if I can get this right. Doing his 30+ days of Halloween films that he's going to be starting. I think he said next week. Is that when it
Yeah,
starts?
I think it starts next weekend.
Okay,
So
next
leading
weekend.
into October, I think. I could be wrong with that. Joe said it a couple times. I forgot the name of the what he's calling
I think
it.
I got
So
close. I think
you
I got
nailed it. I
close.
think you nailed it. I think you
I
nailed it.
tried to pay attention to DC Alliance this week when he was giving you and me guff about not getting it right, but creating some interesting titles. So
Yeah.
yeah, he'll be doing that. His new annual kind of tradition he did last year. I think he's saying he's doing. He did say he's doing the Halloween movies as his big kind
Yes.
of going through. So that'll
I
be.
thought he said there was 12, so that's quite the
Mhm.
amount if you include Rob Zombie. So I'll be interested to hear some of these, and I know the patrons as well.
Yeah, I mean, I like horror. I wouldn't, I dabble here and there. There are certain franchises I do love. Even if I haven't seen the film, I do check it out because I'm always interested because it may get me to actually watch the film.
Hmm.
So yeah, and we have a lot of back content on there. So patrons, we hope you are enjoying it. We can't do this without your support. But if you're not a member of our Patreon, go to www.patreon.com/GUA network to get all the lovely content at that point. But if you can't join us on Patreon, we totally understand. You want to take 30 to 90 seconds and rate and review us on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Amazon, wherever you get your podcast. We greatly appreciate it. And last but certainly not least, we want to thank our official sponsor, OrganicPriceBooks.com, for your omnibus hardcover collected edition needs. JP and the crew at OPB have got it going on with excellent customer service, immaculate packaging, ships around the world. This is probably the last few hours for these Marvel titles to be under their extra pre-order price drop. At that point, JP and the crew usually keep it up for about 30 or so days. The counter is gone, so that means probably it is momentarily getting ready to be changed over to still a discount, but not the full discount. You got Wolverine titles, you got Captain America titles, you got Predator Omnibus Volume 2. So you got a lot of great stuff. Use that code MarvelGUA at checkout to get $2 off every single order. Use it an unlimited amount of times to let you know they're a listener, and we want to thank them for being our official sponsor. All right, one last note. The September edition of the GUA crossover will be next Friday at 9 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Hosts from across the GUA will be joining in to talk about everything that's gone on in the past month as we wrap up summer and head towards the fall of everything going on in Geek and Nerdom. And possibly, as we've just seen across the Twitter feeds, there is a strong possibility that an end to the WGA strike is imminent at that point. So we'll see. There's a lot of fine details to still work out. But that's I hope they do get. I know compromise is always a part of it, but I do hope the writers end up getting a majority, if not all, of their demands met. But we'll keep our fingers crossed because that's the first one to fall. At that point, hopefully, the Screen Actors Guild will come to the table with them in order to bring all these strikes to a close. So
Yeah, it's been too long. Just
yeah.
too long.
My attendance in this one I may be having to sit out. It's been a very long month for me. Pretty much every weekend I've had something going on, either supervision of a game or something like that. So this one I might be setting out, but never say never. There might be a time I might pop in.
I will be there. I was struck down with the COVID-19
You will
during
be.
the last one, and then unfortunately passed it on to my son, which could not have been a worse feeling.
Mm-hmm.
But I will be there, and patrons, be on the lookout for a link to join us if you want. It's going to be a fun
Yep.
discussion, and it's always great to see some patrons drop by as we chop it up.
Yes, and Andrew just became a patron, so we want to say thank
Woo!
you, Andrew, for doing that. I know you've been a very frequent in there, always kind of any of our live stuff. You're always there, so we greatly appreciate you being a loyal listener, and thank you for
Mm-hmm.
joining and becoming a patron. All right, so maybe we'll see you in the patron.
Yeah.
So pay attention for that at that point. So. All right, so news this week. If you are watching on YouTube or watching us live, the background, the title is definitely what we're leading with. Is kind of a surprise. Loki season 2 has shifted their premiere date and time, as well as the entire season 2. Marvel Studios shared via X, formerly Twitter, that season 2 of Loki will now be released on Thursday, October 5th at 9 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, 6 p.m. Pacific. The show's previous release date was Friday, October 6th. The new title and series will come out on Thursday. Is also a big change from the standard 3 a.m. Eastern Standard Time format that all the previous MCU Disney Plus shows had. The official press release for Loki Season 2 included that all subsequent episodes of the show will be released every Thursday beginning at 9 p.m. Eastern Standard Time as well. So if Marvel Studios and Disney Plus only release one episode, this is something we wanted to bring up. If they only release one episode of Season 2 at launch, that would mean Episode 2 will be released on October 12th. The third will hit on the 19th. For the 26th, the 5th on the 2nd, and the season finale, episode 6, will be on November 9th. If Marvel Studios releases the what was it? Getting back, I was trying to see. So that's if they release one episode at a time. There is precedent that they sometimes can release 2 episodes the first time and then moving on. Here's the thing. There's something that's happening on one of those dates.
The Marvels.
The Marvels, yes. The Marvels official release date, again, we have they always have the previews at that point, is the official release date is November 10th, but obviously previews start November 9th, the day before. So that begs to pause. At that point, I know one's a show, one's a movie at that point, but that's something that's happened before, and it's always kind of like, I'm not sure that was a good move. What do you think on that first point?
I think that you're right there. There is some precedent to not do this, to throw 2 episodes out first to avoid the movie. That wouldn't be the worst thing here. I don't know how much it's going to take away, though, just because of the overall weekend. I don't know how big of a hit the Marvel is going to be, and we're going to get into that in the next topic, of course. Loki was arguably no, there's no argument. Loki was the biggest hit critically, combined with fan enthusiasm for all these shows that they've already put out on Disney Plus. So there is a chance it could pluck some people, Chris, but I would forge ahead. I'd just do 1 episode at a time. The only reason sometimes for them to do 2 episodes is something big happens in the second episode, is to hook, to bring your casual viewers into the show. That's some of the reasons why they do drop 2 episodes at one time. There might be a big cliffhanger in the second episode, or something big happening in the second episode that will rope people in. The first episode could be catch up, a lot of it. So if we get 2 episodes, I think there's a possibility. I don't think Marvel's scared to have a show and a movie on at the same time, but there is something to be said about is it really needed?
Yeah. Like I said, the easy way around this would be to have a 2-episode
Mm-hmm.
premiere for Loki season 2. At that point, they just did it with Ahsoka. They did 2 episodes with Ahsoka at that point. But again, that would mean like a much shorter kind of turnaround, since it's only 6 episodes, but that hasn't stopped them before. So the finale would come out Thursday, November 2nd, giving the Marvels the full week at that point. So they just said the season premiere will come out, that day, but they didn't say 1 episode or 2 episodes. So
Do we know if any of the press have been given screeners yet? And if so, how many episodes? That's usually an indication sometimes of how, like, they could possibly drop a couple episodes because usually something happens. Like I said,
I've got to go back in our chat because I put in there the other day of when screeners are going out for. I want to say, I think the screeners are going out the week before. They're getting them the week before, but they're not. The embargo lifts on the 2nd, I believe. So,
I'm not worried. I know you posted in the chat too about like the embargo being so close to when the episodes drop. I don't think it matters that much for these TV shows compared to film. So, like, that doesn't make me worried about the quality of this show or season at all.
Yeah, and so again, I'm excited that they're giving Marvel the chance to, put that out. What's been very successful in my opinion I've really enjoyed it. Getting to watch, Ahsoka at a reasonable time, the last thing I do before I go to bed that night. I'll get to do this at that point. Um,
So not fair. It's
yeah.
so not fair being in my time zone. I'll get up in the morning and it'll be, I've seen Ahsoka, I've seen Ahsoka, I've seen Ahsoka. I was like, okay, everybody in their 2.5 hour time zone difference from me. Enjoy your Ahsoka. I was
Yeah, you were in
sleeping.
the weird zone where you couldn't benefit on either side.
No, it's just I'm in this island zone. The only time it benefits is to get to see the movie a couple hours before you guys, but then I have
Mhm.
nobody to talk to about said movie, so I'm just waiting for you guys to see it anyway. So, uh,
That's true. Those occasional things. So I mean, either way, again, we're watching this. It will be interesting, at least, of how we cover it, which we're going to go into in just a little bit of how we're going to go over tonight. We're also going to talk about with this brings about a number of network shifts, some temporary, some permanent. Um, but either way, I'm very excited about this season. I'm really hoping, despite all the controversy of Jonathan Majors, it is the what is it? It's something that I'm looking forward to because it was so cool seeing what they did with this show and how much it grew. I'm really excited about where these characters that we grew to love and appreciate from the first season, where are they at now? How much more zany is it going to get? And please, please, please let us really dive into the multiverse a lot more than we did the first season instead of the teases.
same. I'm looking forward to it. Even just a couple extra Lokis we got at
Hmm.
the end there. That was so awesome. Now, just like please put some steroids into that and give me the 10th degree of the multiverse here.
Yeah. All right, so with this, we've given you a peek behind the curtain. We try to on the network, and I know DC Alliance has been more of the receiving end of having to figure out how to get content, not just news, but also stuff you review. You don't want to like wait basically the day or the week or the day before a new episode drops to review because by then everything's been talked about, everything's been done at that point. So, with that idea of what's going on is let me pull up our notes. So this is what's going to happen for Geek Ultimate Alliance. So starting with Marvel Alliance will shift from this is starting the week of Loki. All right, so the week of Loki drops October 6th. And so Marvel Alliance will shift. Our live will go, we will now move to Fridays live, and then audio will drop on Saturdays for the entire season of Loki. We will move back to our normal time of going live on Thursdays and Fridays, but the week of Loki and for the entire season, Marvel Alliance will go live on Friday nights at 9:10 Eastern Standard Time, with the audio dropping on Saturday morning. Um, if this is all depending on if they're doing one episode, this is basically if they do one episode a week, that means that we will have an episode of Loki the same week that the Marvels comes out. Marvel Alliance will go live on Friday night to do our Marvels review. Our Loki review will be recorded later that weekend, not live, and will drop at some point that weekend to be determined. Brent and I haven't even gotten to that point because again, we need to first find out how many episodes are dropping to do that. But the Marvels movie will take priority for the review. So, Travis, DC Alliance will also be making a permanent shift as a result of this. So, talk to us about what that's going to do.
First, I want to give a shout out to Joe, my co-host, who basically organized this the entire thing on the DC Alliance side of things while I was sleeping. Props to Joe for
Mm-hmm.
that. He came to me after and said, "Yeah, everything's good." He let me know beforehand, and
Yep.
we are moving to Friday nights permanently. But while Marvel Alliance covers Loki, we'll be going to Thursday nights, and our podcast audio will drop on Fridays. But when Loki is over, we will shift to Fridays permanently. Chris mentioned it before. We have been getting the uh, bad side of things with being on
The
Mondays.
Shaft.
Although, yeah, basically the Shaft. Although we've gotten 9 extra volumes in Marvel, essentially because we covered Superman and Lois and couldn't, like Chris said, basically wait a full week and be behind an episode when another one would drop. So it works out for us again. Just today, Doom Patrol released season four's trailer on a
Mm-hmm.
Thursday. So now going forward, stuff like that'll happen, and we'll get to talk about it on Friday night. So
Yep.
And we're not sure yet when it comes to films. We only have to worry about Marvel Alliance right now, but maybe one day when there's another Star Wars film down the line, some year
Mhm.
in some distant future, some galaxy far away, we'll switch or we'll go earlier that Friday. We'll figure out a way when there are movie reviews. Either
Mhm.
we'll go to Thursday where Marvel is, or we'll do something a little earlier, or put out just an audio feed sometime that weekend. Just we'll figure something out when the movies, but we'll be Friday night. We'll be at home, 8 p.m. Eastern time. I'm excited because sometimes the news is just it's like all the hubbub from it is gone because we're on Monday night. So this is exciting move for us, Chris. I'm really
Yep.
happy and glad that we're able to go to Thursdays until Loki is over.
Yeah, so again, this will we one more week of the normal schedule at that point, but there is one more shift that'll happen. Walk the Multiverse will be permanently moving to Tuesday's audio drop from their Saturday morning audio drop. As a result of DC Alliance moving, Joe will bring Walk of the Multiverse to Tuesday mornings every other week. He did want me to say though, when Generation V, Gen V, on Apple, excuse me, Amazon Prime, the spinoff show from The Boys, when that show premieres, he will be dropping review episodes weekly and then go back to bi-weekly at that point. So a lot of shifts happening. So let me kind of go
Mm-hmm.
this way. The week of Loki, we at Marvel Alliance will start doing live episodes on Friday night, audio dropping Saturday. If they stick to a one episode premiere at that point, then the Marvels will come out. We will do our Marvels review that Friday night. The Loki review will happen later, not live. Will audio dropping shortly after. DC Alliance is moving to Thursdays live with Friday audio dropping during Loki, and then will permanently move to Fridays live with audio dropping Saturday. And Walk the Multiverse will be moving permanently to Tuesdays audio drops. So,
Mm-hmm.
so a lot of shifts at that point, and it was it was necessary. You know, it ended up kind of working out for what DC Alliance wanted. It works out, thankfully, for Brent and I. We can definitely do this temporary shift for Friday nights at that point. And, but yeah, so, you know, we, like I said, one more week of the normal schedule before we make the changes. You'll probably be hearing, starting next week, all, you know, DC Alliance and Star Wars, Animation Nation, Walk the Verse will all be promoting the change at that point. So, but yeah, you know, we do this for you, you the people.
And apologies in advance for the stumbling I'll do for the network plugs for the first 2 or 3 episodes. I'm going to give myself a little grace
We
period
applaud him
there.
for still doing it, even though we tell him he doesn't have
And
to.
sometimes you need, especially solo, sometimes you need to stretch the episode just a tiny bit to get where you
uh,
need to get.
there we go. Andrew's applauding it, saying, "Well, that was the best part of my Monday. The move makes sense, and I'll still be watching."
I think the only thing that ever came out on Monday was that Joker 2 was announced, that it
Oh,
was happening. I think that was the only thing that ever came out just before the
yeah.
episode.
Yeah, you know, we at Marvel Alliance did get a couple of things because you get those Heat Vision reports at that point that drop on Friday afternoon, and we're basically having to wait a week, saying, "Well, we know we have a show now. We're just gonna have to wait a
Yeah,
week to cover it." So we understand your pain in a
yes,
different way.
it's we're all in that team G way here, so.
Yep. So, all right. Looking at the time. All right. Let's take our first ad break. The next story is going to be a little bit long, and the last one's going to be quick. So let's take our first ad break for the evening. So, as you know, listeners, these ads help keep the lights on the Geek Ultimate Alliance Network. We don't get to choose what ads come on, and they can be a bit loud. Give it that 3 count before they come on. 3, 2, 1. We'll be right back. And we are back. All right. So, even though again the screen actors and the writers are on strike, the directors have already made a deal, so they are free to talk about like and promote their projects at that point. And Nia DaCosta, who is the director of the Marvels, gave a this is with all these pieces, these were done months ago at that point, but
Mhm.
Vanity Fair did a whole kind of big story about her background, her experiences on directing the Marvels, and some people have found some interesting statements, some quote unquote controversy with what she's been saying, and I love it when people try to find controversy in things. I'm saying, yeah, we've already kind of known this, but it's interesting that you still find this controversial. So uh, back in early 2020, when Marvel was on the hunt for a new director of the Marvels, uh, Nia DaCosta came in to pitch her vision for the project to the executive and talent. 4 minutes into the meeting, Brie Larson sent an all caps text to their mutual friend Tessa Thompson. All it said was her name in all caps. And so basically, knowing that she had already gotten the part, the star had signed off on it, and she was 30 at the time. And when she got the job, becoming not only Marvel's youngest director ever, but also the first black woman to helm one of its films. She says in the article, "When I go into these rooms, I'm really just like, this is what I want, and I'm not trying to figure out what they want, so I don't have those kind of nerves." Her friend Tessa Thompson, who knows her way around the Marvel universe from playing Valkyrie, doesn't think DaCosta is giving herself quite the credit. She said she has the combination of real humility and also this idea of why shouldn't I be able to do these things? That's the belief in self. You need that, especially if you're going to be in the position where people are inclined to underestimate you at every single moment. So at the time of signing, she had only released just one project, an indie movie called Little Woods, which was made for less than $1 million. That was galaxies away from a superhero box office. But again, I find this interesting in the sense like people like saying, "Oh my God, they gave it to her just based on one movie." I personally have not seen it, so I can't necessarily comment on that. But I've heard from enough people who have been in kind of pitch rooms for this at that point. Sometimes those indie projects shows potential, but it's also the idea of what her pitch was and how it aligned with Kevin Feige's, Brie Larson's, and everyone's kind of idea on that. What do you kind of feel about that?
I love that because it shows that Brie Larson was like right there and excited for her to uh, like helm this. She like you said, she loved her ideas, and the fact that she won this so quickly, so easily, they must be very confident in her vision. So
Hmm.
that gets me excited for this film. I'm nervous for her. I hope that it makes the money it needs to,
Hmm.
especially with the last few. But here it sounds like she has an exciting idea, and she's pretty confident in that.
Yeah, Kevin Feige said we were just very impressed with her indie cred and her nerd cred. The studio has tapped some very inspired directors over the years: Ryan Coogler, Taika Waititi, Chloe Zhao, just to name a few. Still, Marvel Universe is not necessarily an auteur-driven kind of studio. With movies and TV shows are interconnected, and Feige sometimes seems more like an army general. This is Variety speaking. Excuse me, Vanity Fair speaking. An army general rather than a movie executive. DaCosta finished another studio film before she actually started on the Marvels, which was the hit Candyman. She was a writer director and used to a certain level of autonomy. She says that's where most of the real pure stress as an artist comes from. She tells me from her East London flat, pausing in to let in her dog, saying that people are like, "Oh, it's Marvel, cool, cool, cool," but I have my name on it, so I want to be able to be proud of that too. Later in the article goes into you know how Marvel encouraged her to talk to some of the other directors before she went into production, and so she bounced around some of the fears off of people like Chloe Zhao, Taika Waititi, James Gunn. She also asked some friends who were in the universe. She asked, "Are they going to kill me and destroy my soul? Is Kevin Feige a bad man?" She jokes, and they were like, "No, he's a good guy and just a big nerd." DaCosta has some nerd cred. Here's her nerd cred. She watched the X-Men the animated series and Sailor Moon manga on TV when she was young. In the Marvel, she's focused on the tricky dynamic among the three main characters: Carol Danvers, Captain Marvel, Monica Rambeau, and Kamala Khan, whose light-based powers are all meshing together in very challenging ways. She's pleased with the different places that she could put her stamp on it. She loved the production, but admits there were days when she texted Destin Daniel Cretton, who's the director of Shang-Chi and Legend of the Ten Rings, and said, "I'm overwhelmed. I'm so stressed." As she puts it now, sometimes you'd be in a scene and you'd be like, "What the hell does any of this mean?" Or an actor is looking at some crazy thing happening in space and they're actually looking at a blue X. They're obviously hard days, and the days were like, this just isn't working. But again, like this is her first thing. She jumped from indie project and she had done Candyman, but this is by far probably, as we'll get into, the biggest kind of playground she could have, and dealing with not an origin story, but basically three established characters already at that point. So that brings a little challenge within itself.
That got to be stressful as anything, Chris. Like this is your big break, essentially. Like you're doing this big film. You have all these moving parts. Like you said, she only did one other indie film before. I can't imagine going from that kind of thing where you did that for 1 million to come onto this set with all the green screen and
Mhm.
all the. It definitely she definitely had to have moments like this. But it's nice to see that he forged on and also contacted another director in the MCU to basically just vent a little, just get a
Yeah.
little bit of support. So it's really nice to see that, and I hope
Mhm.
that it turns out well for her with this film.
Oh yeah. And talking about like the idea of Feige says he prioritizes individual movies over the grander sweep of the studio storytelling. She says the overarching narrative is secondary to the narrative of the individual film, but DaCosta was fully cognizant that a powerful entity to do a job. It is a Kevin Feige production. It is his movie, she says. So I think you live in that reality, but I tried to go in with the knowledge that some of you is going to take a back seat. So this is what some people criticize the MCU about, like, and I don't see any necessarily like people are saying, "Oh my gosh, she says it, she confirms it." It's like when it comes down to it, at that point, the MCU has never been the whole thing like for, as I said in the article, it's never been an auteur driven studio. You know, they've established a franchise, they've established a cinematic universe. Kevin Feige has proven, even with a few bumps here and there recently, he's proven to be the one to say, like, he knows kind of what the general audience expects, what he wants the brand to be. And yeah, you're going to have some ways to have your imprint on it. But being that this is her first film with the MCU, probably he's gonna allow so much before he says this is the way it's gonna have to be. Like it or not, that's studio making for you.
I essentially hearken it to bowling with the bumper walls on.
Hmm.
That's essentially what you're doing as a director. You're not allowed to go completely out of control most times uh, because there's rules, there's a hierarchy,
Hmm.
there's a greater story in play that yes, some of these elements do have to service that. Not a lot, not all of them. Not like she said, but I really find it funny here that people are like, "Oh my god, this means that no director." No, like
Hmm.
just go watch the three Guardians films just to give you a chance to show you there director allowed to do his thing. Like the projects literally have a Kevin Feige production title card at the
Yep,
start and
all the
end.
games got it right. They
Yeah.
it literally is that. And again, she's not saying that as a bad thing. She still
No.
says, "I got to put my stamp on it. I just couldn't put all my stamp on it. This isn't my movie. This isn't my indie project. This is not something I'm funding. I'm getting to play in the playground that Feige and the people before had established and the characters they established." So I don't think, even though yes, she was 30 years old at the time. She's the youngest director at the time that was hired. I I have a very strong understanding that I think she had some sort of idea of what she would be getting into in taking on something like this and who she'd be working with.
Which is
You know,
smart, Chris. You don't want to
yeah.
go into that thinking that you can be the same way you were on your indie movie, that you didn't have to answer to anybody, that this is like your
Hmm.
show. You bump heads. Like it's better to go in knowing that beforehand. That just sounds like maturity to me.
Yeah. All in the Game makes a comment saying, regardless of how the movie turns out, the discourse when the movie is released is going to be toxic. And kind of going along the same lines as that, she goes on and says, as she awaits the film dropping in November, she has basically, decamped, as they say, from all social media. Captain Marvel, which was directed by Anna Boden and Ryan Fleck, may have an enormous hit, but it was one that was also one of the few female-fronted films in the studio's early universe, and not coincidentally the recipient of sexist vitriol and the darkest corners of fandom. As for the Marvels, it centers around three women, including the first Muslim superhero in one of the studio's movies. She says, "I'm just girding myself for it. I'm sensitive soul, and I think I'm maybe more of us than what wants to admit." She's also grappling with, as she says, being the breakthrough she's made, including the fact that the Marvels is the highest budgeted film ever helmed by an African American woman. Uh, Duvernay's A Wrinkle in Time previously held that title with 100 million at that point. On sets, she's noticed that, and she, in the way she's spoken to or heard, is different than it would be in someone else who doesn't look like her. She says, sometimes as a black woman, you realize that people think you take up more space than you actually do, or your voice sounds louder to people than it actually is, or your tone is more stern than it actually is. She says, despite having Jordan Peele's full support on Candyman, DaCosta says the same ridiculous things happen on that set, with crew members saying, things can be super inappropriate and you would just never say to anyone else because they were so specific to my gender, my race, and my age. Um, she had a very different experience on the Marvels, though. Fortunately, in part because she had the power to hire the people she wanted on her team. She said, I realized it wasn't ever going to be about how much power I amassed or how many great movies I made or if I won awards. It was always going to be the people that I surrounded myself with, she says. The thing that I've been most surprised by lately is how much respect I'm getting from these middle-aged white dudes that I work with. So there is still a problem in Hollywood. There is still a problem on these sets. There is apparently still a problem on sets that are, as she said, even coming on Candyman, which was a Jordan Peele run kind of project at that point. But as she says, I'm young. I'm quote unquote inexperienced compared to, in the sense of like how many projects she's done. She's an African American woman at that point. This is how it's been for so long, and it's getting tiring to say that we're still dealing with that. They are having to still deal with this. And again, I'm a white man speaking like this. I know it's, but again, I'm just getting tired of hearing stuff like this, and I don't know what has to happen to finally change this.
Yeah, it's very frustrating, Chris. Just want to judge the movie on the movie. Just want to let the people do the best job they can possibly do. It's frustrating that not everyone has the same set of rules, I guess, or same chances,
I know,
opportunities.
treating like people like a human being to begin with.
Yeah, it's just common decency. It's just treat people like you'd like to be treated. That's kind of how I've kind of been brought up, and I just you just expect that from people, but that's not always the case. And like you said, it's very sad to hear that it especially happens even on Jordan Peele run sets, because you're like you would think that there would be a less likely chance for that to happen, but no, like you said, it happens everywhere.
Yeah. I think the more controversial thing was not necessarily what she said, but somewhere in the article it said like the movie was made for 130 million. And I gave a real big pause to that. I was like, there is
Ugh.
absolutely no way that has happened just based on Brie Larson being on an Academy Award winning actress at that point. I'm sorry, but and
The
so
last one made 1 billion too, so there's no
yeah,
way.
and being this is a very space kind of cosmic movie at that point, a lot of VFX is going to be used. So that story was very quickly debunked by Forbes. The official budget, according to their sources, is 274.8 million, making it one of the most expensive MCU projects to date. This comes as a bit of surprise, seeing that the movie was only rumored to be 100 minutes in length. However, has not been confirmed yet, but the high cost is likely due to the extensive visual effects bringing to life. However, Forbes also reported that Disney received a 55 million subsidy from the United Kingdom government while making the film, bringing the total amount spent down to $220 million, and that is before the budget for marketing. So, or I don't know. That may be including the budget for marketing. We're not sure, but right now it's been brought down to 220 million. In comparison, the 274 million mark. So taking out the excuse
Credits,
me,
because we
the
don't
credit. Yeah,
know
the
we
credit
don't
for the
know what
subsidy.
other films might have got subsidies as
Yep.
well.
So this is the fourth highest, most expensive movie in the MCU. Endgame was the most at 400 million, but we trace out a lot of the stars in that movie, let alone the VFX. Age of Ultron 365, Infinity War 300 million, followed by the Marvels. Thor: Love and Thunder, Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3, Captain America: Civil War 250 million, and the very first Avengers movie 225 million. 200, even though, even with the subsidy, $220 million. $220 million. Like
This, oof.
it's like we keep on saying, one thing, and I want to mention this: the VFX artists of the Marvel thing unanimously voted to unionize at that point. So now they're an official union at that point and can make that idea. But it's all in the game. Is pointing out in the chat. Phase 4 and 5 have been between 200 and $250 million for production budget. So yes, okay, this is in line, but still,
They're operating on pre-COVID numbers, Chris, in terms
yeah.
of the filmmaking, and that's something that kind of got to change. I'm really nervous for this film just for the box office. I
Hmm.
I, I think I'm going to really enjoy it. I enjoyed the three characters. I'm a really big Miss Marvel fan, so I think I'm going to really enjoy this film. But this needs to make what 600 million, 700 million. On the game, hit me what it needs to make to uh, do well. Like
Like just
you're really good
quote unquote break even.
break even. So you're pretty good at busting that out. That I'm nervous it's not going to hit that. I don't. I hope it. I hope it does a billion again. That's something I'd
I
love, especially
Yeah,
with.
that's
But
I just think
that was a
that
perfect
is
storm.
I would love to be proven wrong, but I've been pretty staunch in the idea that this is not a $1 billion movie. If Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3 can't be a $1 billion movie, then we're living in different times. We're living in a
Yes.
world where, again, the general public knows this will drop on Disney Plus. If they can wait a month, maybe 2 months for it, between that time, they will wait. Because again, we've talked about this. We talked about this in the last crossover. For $100 just to go to the movies, let alone not including babysitter fees and things like that, it is it is quite expensive just to go to the movie. And all in the game saying, yep, budgets come down, need to come down 150 175 million for their production. He says, according to kind of his math, looking at a $650 million to break even. So yeah.
Not that's not guaranteed anymore. That's the scary thing. Like
Hmm.
obviously we're getting a big first opening weekend. That is pretty much given just when you flash Marvel Studios in
And
front of the film. But the legs is what's going to come into play here.
well, also now that it would have been a lot worse before Dune moved to next year. Now they've got
Hmm.
IMAX screens again.
It's
If
prime
the
to
screen
do to make it.
if the Screen Actors Guild strike ends at that point, before this, we got the three leads going out there promoted. We say that is critical. Those
Yes.
three going out on the tour will make a difference. I'm not saying it's going to make $1 billion difference, but I will be hard pressed to see not having those three on the tour together. That will help people want to at least see the movie at least one time.
Yeah, I think a lot of these films they're finding out too that not having these actors to promote the films does a lot of damage.
Hmm.
Doesn't do any good. It's hard to promote your film if you don't have the people starring in it able to come out and promote
Yeah.
it.
So, but all right, yeah, interesting to hear her kind of experience at that point. I thought it was interesting, especially when that budget mistake kind of going around at that point. It's like 130. I think it was like 130 million for like the first 2 or 3 months of production. It's like, what? Who wants to put out that? Who cares at that point? That's like a nothing stat. That's like nobody cares about that. Everyone cares about the final budget at that point, and that's the thing that I agree with Bob Iger. It's he is not, as many of the mistakes that he has made. He is not incorrect by saying it has been they have overspent and overproduced
Hmm.
the MCU.
Yes, but
So
in reality too, though, why wouldn't you try and milk that cash cow if you are Disney, especially new? Okay, old new Bob. If you're taking over that role, that would be one of the first things that I would say too. Is let's pump out more of this content. It's the
the
golden goose. It's the cash cow. Now, other Bob can say that was a terrible mistake because he didn't make it. So,
but again, the thing was like COVID changed so many
hmm
things, and they failed to understand the new reality that they themselves were forced to create, and understanding like you can't do the same thing over again. As the Joker said, you've changed things forever.
hmm
And they are starting to unfortunately realize that they've had a self-inflicted gunshot wound that they have to find a way to backtrack and course correct before, again, yeah, you can you can do a good thing over and over again, but time will reveal, as as it does now, that people are gonna find other ways and just like, I don't need to see that right now.
Yeah,
I
I'll
can see
see
it
it when
later.
it goes to the digital. I'll see it.
Yep. So, all right. So the final story of the evening. It's a quick one at that point. Disney unveils new look at the King Thanos Avengers ride. So, a few weeks ago, it's kind of a quieter story, but it's just kind of making the rounds again. At the Destination D23, Disney shared a new look at the ride vehicle for its Avengers Campus King Thanos attraction. According to Disney, the high tech vehicle is designed to jump between worlds and even realities on planet Earth and beyond. It'll combine portal technology and flight capabilities to maneuver through the skies, allowing heroes and recruits to deploy wherever they are needed. While the story and the overall ride experience, such as the movement and speed, have yet to be revealed, Walt Disney Imagineering teased physical and large scale environments as well as immersive media. In short, this is more than just a simulator or screen based ride. It was also revealed at Destination D23 that three different MCU franchises contributed to the creation of the reality jumping vehicles. According to Marvel, the design is inspired by Tony Stark's time suits from Endgame, the Zandorian jump points from Guardians of the Galaxy, and Black Panther's Wakandan technology. But now that the Marvel fans know they will travel to different worlds and timelines, it's important to note who they will be encountering along the way. The original concept art, which was an amazing concept art in my opinion, that this attraction featured an ensemble of heroes unlike any other, from Thor, from in both Captain America's to Miss Marvel to Daredevil, even the animated characters from What If will be included. But that's not all. In addition to a white bearded King Thanos, King Feige did tease at the event that foes from anywhere and every when. This suggests that
Ooh,
Marvel
this
baddies from phases past could and probably will return. The upcoming attraction will be the third at Disney California Adventures Avengers Campus, joining the likes of Guardians of the Galaxy Mission Breakout and Web Slingers A Spider-Man Adventure. So right now, no plans yet to put this in Florida, but rest assured that at some point there will be plans to eventually put it in Florida. So, what are you feeling about that with some of the kind of updates, small updates in the sense of like this is going to be bigger than originally even thought of?
it looks pretty cool in the concept art. Not gonna lie, this
Yeah.
looks awesome. Have a feeling we're gonna find out like this is so state of the art. We're gonna lose a few people in the virtual realities, and we
Yeah.
like have to send people in to save them. No, I think this is awesome. And again, this is just advancing the technology and making an even cooler experience. I There was one line there, Chris, about the portal technology and flight capabilities
Yep.
to maneuver through the skies, allowing heroes and recruits to deploy wherever they are needed.
Hmm.
Really interested to see what they're talking about there. Is it just what you're watching? Are they going to send people in the ride out, like to part?
Yeah.
I'm so many
I,
questions. I can't wait to
I,
see someone go through it.
what I can say is this sounds like they're also taking lessons learned from Rise of the Resistance, which is both in California and Florida, which is probably one of the most immersive experiences I have ever had in an attraction. So, in that idea in mind, if they're taking that and trying to bring it to there, it will be a very, very cool experience. So,
Agree.
but all right, well, that is all the news for this week. So, we're going to take our final ad break for the evening. So, listeners, these ads help keep the lights on in the Geek Ultimate Alliance Network. We don't get to choose what ads come on, and they can be a bit loud. Give it a 3 count before they come on. 3, 2, 1. We'll be right back. And we are back. All right. So Brent, even though he's away, he still puts up the Spidey signal. And we've got some questions. First coming from DC Outlaw. So he says, why do you think it's become a popular opinion that Thor the Dark World is the worst MCU movie? I enjoyed it a lot, first watch, and even when I rewatched it a couple years ago. I still enjoyed it. In my opinion, the pros, visuals, costumes, VFX, humor, characterization, movie outweigh the con, the con for him, which is Malekith. Is the hate due to the villain, or is it the need for there is something at the bottom of the list, and it fits the bill? What do you feel about that? Where does kind of Thor: The Dark World put rank for you?
It's close to the bottom, but not quite. And I still like when we were talking about these before. I enjoy all the MCU movies, so if it's at the bottom doesn't mean I don't enjoy it. It's just not as good as the other ones for me, mostly because of the villains. Even his second in command, I don't have. There are some good emotional moments in this, like Thor's mother dying. That was such a powerful moment. I really enjoyed a lot of this film, but the third act kind of, I don't know, just the third act battle is just a lot of blah, and it's a little forgettable for me. But if you like it, that's all that matters. As long like none of these films are the same, and no two people have the exact same rankings. Well, though obviously some people do, but it's all about your own perspective here. It's not my least favorite Thor film, if I could put that out there.
It is my least favorite at that point. It is at the bottom of my list. You know, yeah, I don't think you're necessarily wrong, DC Outlaw. That sometimes there's just got to be a movie, and this one just seems to get the hate. It, I think a lot of things for me personally, the way Thor set up kind of a very Shakespearean, Kenneth Branagh is just an amazing director at that point, and someone like his gravitas. And this isn't knocking the director of Thor: The Dark World. I'm just saying with what he established for the first one,
Hmm.
and the kind of basically the a number of directors kind of went in, including Patty Jenkins at one point was ready to was helming this before creative differences had her exit the project. Yeah, Malekith, like I'm a big fan of the actor being Doctor Who. I am fine to admit that at that point. Eccleston, I think, was for bringing back new Who. I actually do find some. I've only made it through his iteration. I'm still slowly making my way through Doctor Who in the second one, in the second round, but he's a big black spot for me in that film. I think the writing is a big problem for me. It doesn't bring the gravitas there. It just the the idea of Malekith, the whole thing is just like even Endgame does bring that into a different light. At that point, it doesn't move the needle for me. It's just I'll enjoy it watching it at that point, and I put that in quotes. But I don't hate it. It's just like meh. It doesn't do anything for me. I do find more enjoyment, slightly more enjoyment for Thor: Love and Thunder, even though I still also have problems with that movie. Thor: The Dark World just uh, yeah, it is a in my opinion it is a definition of a sophomore slump movie.
Yes, and it has an Infinity Stone in it, and it's like it's so boring, Chris. So
Mhm.
boring for me. I don't know. Like you said, coming off the first film too, really love that. Just the aesthetic of that alone is
Mhm.
perfect. So again, like you said, sophomore slump happens, but we got Ragnarok after this, and can't
Yeah,
complain
and,
with that.
and
That's my
and
favorite.
Chris Hemsworth, after his experience in there, he wanted a change in direction. He was not
Hmm.
happy playing Thor, and the idea people either love or hate Ragnarok. I really love Ragnarok. It it really kind of brought the character into a different light, and again, some people like the original Thor being kind of more gruff and not the funny man. Well, who knows? When we next see another interpretation of Thor, you may get that.
You might get
So
that initially. You got that initially from this Thor because he didn't meet humans and start to interact
yeah.
with them, and then he does and picks up on a few things. So
Hmm.
it's called character growth, people.
And I also think like some of the jokes were in there were just it just was like not great, just
No.
not good. But all right, but I'm glad you actually found some enjoyment in it at that point. But yeah, and Brent and I, a plug for our Patreon, listen to our review of Thor: The Dark World at that point. It's one of
Hmm.
our early ones for the patrons. He did have another question coming in. If you were in charge of Secret Invasion, oh boy, I was hoping to say, what would you have changed? I don't know how much time you got. No, instead he says, what previous MCU characters would you reveal to be Skrulls besides, or in addition to Rhodey and Everett Ross? Um,
I didn't watch the show yet, but I can jump in. I would love to see Happy Hogan be shown as a scroll, and we find out later on down the line that after the funeral, or even before, because Happy didn't see him while he died. So I would be okay with that.
um, I, yeah, sorry, no, it just Brody being a Skrull. Sorry, no Scrody. I would take that out. Just no,
Hmm.
that's still not sitting right with me at that point. Um, but a character that I could see doing it that would kind of still have a better impact at that point. Um, I really, you know what? How about Nick Fury? Just to just
Ooh.
to kind of just to kind
Especially
of
after
get
the full
how
season
much
of it.
like in the sense of like it would kind of make sense in the sense of like he's defendable. When was he replaced? When was he doing that at that point? It would kind of fit saying he's always been mysterious. We never know what side he could trust at that point. So Nick would be an interesting choice.
Yeah, I like that one.
So, but sorry, it still such has a bunch of bad taste in my mouth. It's hard for me to kind of think about positives of where I can bring a positive to it. So,
I'm genuinely shocked. Like it's surprising. Not very often does an MCU property hit like that for especially you and Brent.
it was my most. I still I haven't re-listened to our review of it, but I know I know it's probably the most negative I've ever been on a Marvel project.
Can't wait to watch the finale. Listen to that.
Yes, it's worth it for just that. It is absolutely worth it. You will hear both Brent and and Chris rage on that.
You're like, what
You
happened?
you had it. You had the moment and you ruined it. You ruined it. You didn't even
Oh,
have to do the comic. You had so much potential. Oh,
you
all right.
blew it up.
Nope. Sorry. Anyways, we've done that. We don't need to revisit.
No.
Amar Daniels, last question. He brings in Chris, Travis. What's your favorite thing about Brent?
Oh, um, hmm. I guess that's the top. He's a good guy, I would say. Also, his Marvel knowledge is quite valuable. But I guess the top thing was when I was starting my podcast early on, superhero discussions. I messaged Brent asking him what kind of hardware he used, what kind of stuff he did. He was very helpful with tips and just little extra. Yeah, you can do it. So yeah, I will say that didn't need to unprompt it, and he just gave me some time. So yeah, that I guess.
Um, you did forget to say you do enjoy that he's always on your left.
I hold that out because that's a fiery. If I could snap something away, that would be on the table of things Travis snapped away, and everyone would forget.
Sorry, I had to put that in for Brent. You know how much he loves
It's 2 weeks in a row.
that. uh, um, Brent and I have a very long standing, and it all started with podcast. I was the first guest on Fans Without Borders when I joined the Patreon tier
DCTV.
you were DCTV. I chose Fan Without Borders. You know, everyone we love Scott and Tim over at Squadcast at that point. I know everyone done that, but I really had they had something special with Brent and Ray, and I was like, I'd like to do their podcast, and his was one of the very first podcasts, and I had absolutely no equipment, no nothing. He was so kind in the sense of dealing with what equipment and what I could do in order to produce the best sound for it. But since getting a reality of having Brent be my host, which I never would have predicted in a million years at that point, um, we've come very close friends. He is one of the people I could always go to and either vent to for random stuff at that point. He's been definitely a very, very good person for me to listen to at that point. He's someone that he teaches me on a daily basis some Marvel things I don't know, and I've taught him on a daily basis things I don't know. He doesn't know about Marvel, but I think we complement each other very well. And it continues to be a good joy having a co-host. So,
Mm-hmm.
but yes, as we all give the aw.
You suck, Brent. I'm never giving up this co-host chair. I had to do something after all those nice things we said. Okay.
And there goes Travis at that point. Oh, he's out of here at that
Oh,
point.
had a good run. Had a good
Bummer.
run.
On your left. As Brent's on your left. Brent's on your left. All right, so those are the questions for this week. Thank you, Amari and DT Outlaw, for asking those. And all right, let me pull up Fact or Fictions from last week. Give me 1 second.
Let me take a screenshot.
All right, so these were mine from last week. Number 1, we will see Supreme Strange return in What If Season 2. 74% said fact, 26% said fiction. Number 2, Ironheart's new release date will be placed so that it is closer when Armor Wars releases. 83% says fact, 17% said fiction. And 3, Sam will be Captain America in Brave New World, but President Thunderbolt Ross will relegate him to a more use for publicity. Sam won't go along with this for long. 81% said fact, 19% said fiction. All right, Travis. As I know you were a guest last week, but I did not think it was fair since it was last minute to put you on the hook for fact or fiction. So this was when you were planning on coming on. So fact or fictions are yours this week. What do you have for me?
I've pulled out a few. I have a little list for the times that I've come here. I just think of some, throw them together. My first one: What If will not get a third season. This is the end of What If after 2 seasons. I'm not loving the episode titles at all after the first season, but again, I'm willing to stand corrected. But I do not
Watch
think.
Happy Hogan Saves Christmas become the new What If Doctor Strange lost his heart?
Oh my god! Never know, Chris.
I'm just saying watch it become that. Yeah, I'm a fact on that. Not like a firm, certain fact on that one, but we know we're getting a second season of 97.
Who knows where they
It'd be
go from
very
there?
hard pressed to see another third season on it because there's not a lot of money in these platforms. But I'm very happy with what we got. There was so much potential with it that they could do, but they didn't want to kind of stretch for that. So yeah, I would say fact.
We got that Doctor Strange episode, episode 5. I think that's just seeing that is enough for to go through the next season.
I'd say we got a little bit more than that, but
Oh yeah, I'm just saying that was such a great episode. It was
Mhm.
oh my god. Miss Marvel will get her own standalone film after the Marvels.
Miss Marvel will get her own standalone film. I will say fiction on that. I think there is more likelihood for her to get a season 2 of the Marvels, and I think a lot of that idea of season 2 will be based on the reception, not just basically what the film makes, but audiences who may have not seen Miss Marvel at that point. Again, a film may not do great, but you always hear, but she or he or she was a standout of that movie, and that's how they get the next level. So even if the Marvels does not do well, reception of Kamala Khan as a character and Aman Vellani as an actress say like, no, we want to see more of her. I think it's more likely to get a season 2 of Miss Marvel than a solo project. So,
That you make a good point there. My last one,
oh, what do you
Tom
say?
Holland. I say fact for that one. I
Okay.
do think I'll fact if the Marvels is a hit. Sorry,
Okay, so
that
you're
that is
saying
the premise.
she will get a solo project.
I
So, all
think
right, so
if it's a hit, they'll ride off that wave and maybe even give Monica Rambeau something. Probably not her own film, but
okay,
again,
so
uh,
I'm a fiction, you're a fact. Gotcha.
the third one, Tom Holland Spider-Man will appear in a post-credit scene in Phase 5.
Hmm. Yeah, since we don't know that new Sony deal at that point,
Actually, let
whatever
me
that was.
reverse this a little time.
Okay.
Yeah, no, that's fine. That's fine. I was
Okay.
going to say Spider-Man will appear in Phase 5, but because I
No,
don't know
you're
what
saying.
Deadpool is going to do, and I wanted to cover my bases there.
All right, so Tom Holland Spider-Man will appear in a post-credit scene in Phase 5 of an MCU film. Um, ugh, I'm a fiction, but it's like a 49% fiction. It's right there. I could see it doing it, but I think Sony is very protective of how they use Spider-Man and what they use it for. I think it could work, but I just think that Spider-Man is a character that if it's in a post-credit scene, it better be a very significant post-credit scene. Not because of Tom Holland saying, "Oh, I'm too big for this."
No,
I think the character and what they want to do with the character seems to be you don't need Spider-Man to be in a post-credit scene. That you don't have to have it.
no, like that rumored one back before he appeared that he was on the tower wiping the wind. Like that's not enough.
Yeah.
I'm talking like setting up Secret Wars kind of deal.
Yeah. Yeah, I
Yeah.
mean, I could see it. That's what I'm saying. I'm basically call me 50-50, but I'll lean fiction.
They'll show a post credit scene, the last film of Phase 5, and it's that council, and I'm like, please, Tom Holland be there. Please, Tom Holland be there.
So All the games asking a question. What are you defining as a hit for the Marvels? If 1 billion is, in my opinion, a reasonable expectation for most of the post 2020, um, I would say a hit at that point. One, it depends on budget, and I would say a hit for the Marvels would have to be for the Marvels to be that would be kind of in the 800s. I'd say they have to be in the 800s to be a hit, in my opinion. I'd say they have to be in the 800s, which is basically kind of where the Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3 is. So I think it's got to make Guardians of the Galaxy numbers by the end.
I was gonna say it's between 7 and 8, depending on, like, what it took to get this film made, like, if the bumps in the road to making this, I don't
Hmm.
know. We were talking about this beforehand. I don't know if any of this was filmed during COVID, where you had to have, your social distancing, wearing
Hmm.
masks, quarantining when you first came into a set for multiple days in a hotel. All that costs extra money too. So I don't wanna crucify them on the budget until I see, like, just some of where it went to.
Yeah.
But if I ever see that, you may never see that. But
Yeah.
again, 700 to 800 million, so not that far off of what you were saying.
Gotcha. All right, so I will post those Sunday afternoon at that point. So make sure you let your voices be heard. And as you know, Comic Book Club is still on break until Brent comes back next week. So again, for you listeners that have been holding on, remember next week Comic Book Club comes back. We'll be reading The Punisher #3.
Yes.
Bringing that back, so we're very excited to do that. I think I've got to reread it because I read it for last week, and at that point, but it's a quick read because I've already read it once.
There you go. You
Um,
just skim
but
through it.
definitely, so that's it. That's all we got for this week. Again, Travis, thank you for pulling double duty. I know it is very late where you live at that point, so I appreciate it. Thank Allison for letting you kind of do this 2 weeks in a row.
They're all asleep up there, Chris. They're fine.
That's
Thank
fine,
you.
but still,
Thank you for having me again. Thank Brent for asking me. I always have fun here talking Marvel. You guys make it so easy. So again, thanks for having me.
of course. And tell people how they can follow you.
You can follow me on Twitter at Travis_156. You can drop me a line. We can chat about anything DC, Marvel, sports. I also host two shows on the network, DC Alliance. We go live still Monday nights on the
One
Geekverse
more week.
Podcast Network. For one more week, we'll be talking about Doom Patrols Season 4 trailer. And also, I do the Animation Nation show, all animation. We wrapped up Harley Quinn Season 4 this past week, little on the bumpy side of a season, but again, it was still a lot of funny moments. So check that out. That was a solo episode, and it was fun.
Yep. Well, definitely check all those out. As always, we want to thank our official sponsor, Organipricebooks.com, for your omnibus hardcover collected needs. Use that code MarvelGUA at checkout to get $2 off every single order. I forgot to plug this up at the start. New episode of World's Finest True Believers drops on Sunday morning. I have a new guest, my friend Jake from the Brave and the Boys YouTube channel. Preview drops while you listen to this today. At that point, make sure you're paying attention to the World's Finest Believers. It'll be very obvious based on the tweet where we are talking about. I will say this: it is a book that sold out immediately when it was announced about a certain project being part of the new phases of DC. At that point, um, it is an amazing story. It is a
I
very
know what
touching
this
story.
is. Oh yeah.
And like I said, once you see the images, you will know what it'll be. But it was a great time, great first time guest. But yeah, Jake from Brave and the Boys YouTube channel will be on. Check that out Sunday morning. You can follow this podcast on Twitter at Marvel A Podcast. You can follow me personally at Chris Balga. You can follow my other show, World's Finest True Believers, at Finest Believers. You can follow Brent on Twitter at BrentTech Prime. You go to basically the same thing for me. All our socials are basically the same amalgamation of our names. You can email the show at marvelalliancepodcast@gmail.com. You can follow the Geek Ultimate Alliance Network on Twitter at GUAPod Network. Feel free to tweet, email if you want to provide feedback, fact or fiction. DMs are open across the board. Continue to rate, review the Marvel Alliance solo feed, GUA Network feed on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Amazon, wherever you listen to your podcast. We greatly appreciate it. Thank you all for listening. Thank you all for joining us live in the chat. Stay safe out there, everyone. And as Stan the Man would say, Excelsior, true believers.
Bye, everyone.
All right, Travis. Post credits discussion tonight is Some people feeling a little taken advantage of. This is coming from Variety. Original Daredevil showrunner calls out Disney scam of naming new series Daredevil Born Again. It resets contract terms back to the first season. So, Stephen DeKnight, who served as the showrunner for the first season of Netflix's Daredevil, recently took to social media to criticize Disney for running a quote unquote scam with its upcoming reboot series, Daredevil Born Again. This is coming from Entertainment Weekly. The 18-episode series features the returns of Charlie Cox, Vincent D'Onofrio, John Bernthal, who starred in the original Netflix series as Daredevil, Kingpin, and Punisher, respectively. Uh, he says, it's an old Disney scam where they slightly rename a series to reset contract terms back to the first season, the Knight wrote on X/Twitter. Needs to be addressed by all guilds and unions and crushed. From what I understand, I'm not going to see a penny from Daredevil Born Again because they added the Born Again and can claim it's a completely different show, he explained. You know, with the exact same two leads who I love playing Daredevil and Fisk. He stressed that he is excited to watch Born Again and he still thinks that it is wrong for Disney can just give the show a new name so that contractually it is not a continuation of the Netflix series despite sharing the same characters. To be clear, he said, I can't wait to see Charlie Cox and the amazing Vincent D'Onofrio reprise their iconic roles, DeKnight wrote, but to claim this is a complete reboot and you don't have to pay the original creatives is some corporate shenanigans to say the least. Um, so, this is not just a Disney scam. This is a very unfortunate standard practice of many different studios at that point when they are looking to, as tonight's pretty much says, screw him. In that sense, he is not essentially wrong. Um, he's right. It is a loophole that they have not Disney has not just exploited, but other studios have also exploited before. So Disney is not the only one who does this.
It's just a little less for like Marvel creators have come out and complained, the comic creators as well for what
Yeah.
they've been compensated. It's just a bad look for you if you're Disney here. But I also can understand as an accountant on the accounting side of things, doing anything possible to get the numbers down when
Mm-hmm.
you're making these. You don't want to look over and say, "Oh, we're paying Stephen tonight. Oh, paying him 250K to." Just because we're using some of the characters that he ran TV show for one season. I don't think he was the showrunner for
Yeah.
seasons 2 or 3. So I can see both sides of this,
Oh, I
Chris.
can
I
totally see it.
understand,
Yeah.
like, what you're trying to get across now. Maybe there should be a little like buyout of him for not his full salary, but maybe like a fourth of what he would, not his fat salary, but a fourth of what he would get if they did the season 4. I don't
Yeah.
know. Like maybe there's a happy medium there, but you're not going to get there. You're going to need the union to step in and just put that as one of the demands. I don't think that's going to be demands on what they're bargaining right now, but maybe in the future that could be something that you can mitigate against. But not much you can
Yeah.
do right now.
No, and he's right. It's a loophole that's meant to cut out the creatives at that point. That I don't know on the priority list of showrunners when they in the guild contracts and things like that. That is a high priority or not a priority. But obviously for people that like him that have this unfortunate experience, yeah, it's okay. Yes, he's right. Like you're using the same actors and characters. Okay, you're calling it a soft reboot at that point. Yeah, he's got something to say and definitely got a claim. Unfortunately, as it is, as I said, this is not just as others. It is a
Hmm.
bad move. It is a poor move, but unfortunately, where it comes to this side of the business, as we have quite seen in the strikes, David Zaslav said it the way it is. This isn't show friends. This is show business at that point. And right or wrong, that's until the loopholes close. Unfortunately, they can exploit it.
And let's not try and kid ourselves that other things haven't happened the same way. We didn't get a 6th season of Spider-Man, the animated series, because they wanted to push out more toys, because back even 10, 15 years ago, that was the goal of any animated series, not to provide quality content, to push out toys. So there are all the, like Chris said, all these little loopholes, side things that people try to do here. So again, it sucks for him,
It does.
but he even says in complaining, I can't wait to watch the show, which doesn't do a whole lot for your complaint that you're there
I'm
like,
still gonna
can't
get
wait for it
my
to come out.
money.
Can't wait for it to come out. It's on my calendar.
Yeah. So, But all right, well, Brent will be back next week, and we'll
Woohoo.
see. We will be 1 week away from Loki premiering, so we are very excited about that, and we hope you have a good weekend and rest of next week. Talk to y'all later. Bye bye.